Not on Instagram yet. We are live on YouTube. Give me 1 second. Let me just confirm here.
Let me also check.
All right, cool. Instagram is good to go here in 1 second. Let me just double check YouTube. Yes, YouTube is good. Instagram is Gucci. Instagram is good. Okay, cool. We are live on YouTube and Instagram. So, hey guys, welcome. I am Salvador here with Detailers Growth, sitting down with Dan or Radu, our ad specialist. How are you, Dan?
Doing great as always. Excited to be here and talk about some follow up. How pros do it.
Yes, yes. So, this is something that we sent out to our clients. So, we're rolling out like a new podcast series where every single week we send out what's working across our client base to our entire client base. Um, Usually it's going to be one focused thing like follow ups, it could be something more broad. But it's kind of covering everything from ads to follow ups to CRMs to automations, everything, right? So, this is kind of what these calls will be similar to as well. One thing we're going to focus on today is going to be follow ups. So, how to actually follow up with your leads, and more specifically, your ceramic coating leads. But this would also apply to your um, detailing leads. So, let's kind of go through the journey, right? So, we get an ad up and running, we start getting leads. From what we've seen, Radu, what would you say is like the most important thing when it comes to following up with those leads?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is making sure that you don't waste time following up with those leads. So obviously you're busy, you're working, and the CRM, the app does its thing where we send out some messages, but in case it's possible, following up with that lead as soon as possible, that would be the first thing. So obviously, getting in touch with them ASAP. That'd be the first thing. Uh, the second major one I would say is knowing exactly how to make those leads feel valued. So personalizing those messages, because it's one thing sending a message just bam price and that's it, or a huge
Right.
block of text and that's it. Instead of doing that, you could, hey John, I got your message. I know exactly what vehicle you have, the color. This would be the quote, or let's jump on a phone call. So
Right.
before jumping into a few more, I would guess these are the main ones. Getting in touch with the lead ASAP, and then making sure that every single message that you send out is somewhat personalized and that lead feels valued. And they know exactly that you're going to take care of them.
Yes, 100%. Let me actually show kind of what we're talking about here. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is a client. I'm going to share a screenshot from a client who we think is doing this correctly. Like they're seeing amazing results, and I think in large part due to their sales rep, but also how they're following up with those leads. So again, like Radu said, you want to make it personalized. You want to make them feel like it's a human that you're talking to. You don't want to
Yep.
rely too heavily on automations, because once you start relying too heavily on automations, people can tell, right?
Yeah.
So, especially with ceramic coating leads, ceramic coating jobs, you might be able to get away with that with like an interior detail lead or something a little bit lower ticket. But when it comes to a ceramic coating lead, you're going to be quoting them $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 for a ceramic coating package. So there's a lot more hands-on that you have to be more hands-on with the sales process. And I think that starts with text, right? You want to follow up as soon as possible. You don't want to wait hours. You don't want to wait too long to follow up with those leads, because when they're in the early stages of looking for quotes, they're going to start shooting out quote requests to all your other competitors.
Yep.
And I'll tell you one thing from my personal experience, that when you reach out to people, when you reach out to detailers and try to get a quote, a good portion of them will not reply to you at all. They won't even get back to you. So, like, you're ahead of your competitors if you're just simply replying to people. And you can take it even further if you're responding in a timely manner.
Yep.
Ideally, less than 10 minutes. Most probably like an hour, but after an hour, I mean, people are busy, right? They're running errands, they're at work, they're taking their kids to school, right? So there's a lot that's going on within their lives. You want to be able to catch them while the iron's hot, right? You want to strike while the iron's hot. So like that's why following up time wise is really important. You want to be able to follow up with them in a timely manner, and you want to make it personalized. So I'm going to go ahead and share this screenshot from a client um, who I think is doing it really well, really well. So this is like what their screenshot, or this is like the response to them giving pricing or giving quotes, right? So, hey Jay, this is Alex with Dapper Auto Salon. Please find the information you requested below regarding your ceramic coating quote for your 2016 GMC Sierra. We have a 3-year, 1 layer starting at 1250, 5-year, 2 layers starting at 1450. And then I love the way they break down what's included in that package. So, one of the biggest mistakes that we see or do, very similar to what you mentioned earlier. Let me just blow this up.
Yep.
Like you mentioned earlier, we do like what we've seen before is people will go ahead and basically copy and paste what they have on their website and send that as a text. So the lead, the person who's interested in getting their car coded is getting this huge wall of text where it's not broken up, it's not easy to read. The information is like they're reading it from a website. It's probably optimized for SEO. So that's
Yep.
why I really like this example and why I think it's very important that you see what it looks like when it's done right.
Yep.
Two other things here. So they're breaking up their paragraphs. I think that's very easy for readability, right? They have the pricing, the coding durability, the 3-year with the pricing as its own like paragraph, like its own 2 lines where people can just see the price. And then at the bottom, they can see everything that's included in that package. Like, I think when you break it down that easily, now you have people who are more interested, like you're giving that information to somebody where it's easy for them to understand exactly what you'll be doing to their vehicle and more importantly what they'll be paying for.
Yep.
So now instead of sending them a big wall of text and just kind of hoping they reply, you're giving them a call to action at the end here. So would you be interested in a free in-person consultation and a tour of our facility sometime this/next week? So they're doing a couple things here. It's like they're breaking up the paragraph, they're making it super easy to read, and they're giving the lead a call to action. So instead of them just giving pricing, which you might think is going to be the right thing to do, instinctively it seems like the right thing to do, right? You just want to give them a price, and then if they like the price, they'll book with you, right? But a lot of times people don't really understand everything that goes into a ceramic coating package, like the entire prep work, like the decon process, the paint correction, and the different levels of paint correction. So if you can kind of portray that or kind of hint at that in the text, at least give them a quick glimpse into what that looks like. Now you have somebody who has the pricing, they know what they're paying for, and you give them a call to action towards the end. And that call to
Yep.
action is, when are you able to come in person just for a consultation, right? No obligation. And the cool thing about that is we're seeing this across our client base where in-person consultations are beating out phone call sales and they're definitely beating out text sales. So this is why this client specifically is kind of like optimizing for that in-person consultation. Because
Yep.
plus think about like the commitment you have from that lead. If you're trying to get them to commit for an in-person consultation, if they agree to that, now you have somebody who's like a red hot lead. Like they are like they're pretty much sold,
Yep.
right? They know the price, they know what they're getting, and they're committing to an in-person consultation. It's like you can't tee it up better than that. You know what I mean? Versus a phone call where there's a lot more, I don't know what the right word for it, but it's like more salesy, right? There's more
Back and
like,
forth, maybe.
yeah, it kind of feels like an arm wrestle, right? You're like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll compromise here, you compromise here.
Yeah.
And that is, it can work, right? Obviously, it depends on your pricing. Usually, you'll see more success with phone call sales if your pricing is around um, anywhere between $800 to $1,200 as your average ticket price.
Yep.
But you can really lean on text for the follow-ups as well, like this client is, right? When do you have time to come in person for a consultation? So there's a couple things there at play where you can really see that they're trying to get the most out of that lead coming in person. So plus if you have a shop, like you definitely want to do only in-person consultations if you have a shop. Because when you have a shop and you can give somebody like a tour of your shop, it kind of adds like another level of trust, right? Like I'm inviting you to my home, I'm showing you like we are legit, we're not just some fly by night business, right? We are legit, we've been here, we're reputable, you can trust us with your vehicle. I think that's really why those in-person consultations work really well, because you're actually getting somebody to commit, you're getting the commitment up front, right? But they're
Yep.
not paying, right? They always get the chance. It's not like you're pressuring them to come in person or close over the phone, but you're getting some level of commitment that you otherwise simply can't get via text or a phone call. And I
Yep.
think that level of commitment is why in-person consultations perform really well. So that is a good point, Radu, that you mentioned as far as like following up with leads. You want to be able to, I guess, give them the information they're looking for in a way that it'll help you out in the future, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to just
Exactly.
give them price and then have them do whatever with that quote that you give them,
Yeah.
right? I think
That.
that's one of the biggest mistakes that we see, right?
Yeah. That screenshot, the text. That's a great example because when I see it, first thing I see are those lines.
Yeah.
3-year coating, RODC, 3-year coating. Okay, I see the price. Above that, even as you said, the readability. Above the price, 2016 GMC Sierra. So I already know this detailer knows exactly what I'm driving, knows the year of the vehicle, so it's
Hmm.
personalized. Plus,
Yes.
I saw Hey Jay, so Hey Jay,
Yep.
I know your vehicle, I know your name, I know the pricing, and then under the pricing, you can already see both of these include. And when you hear both of these, you're automatically thinking, even if I go maybe with the lower end package, both are still gonna include at least something. So let me check
Yeah.
out, let me see what those are. So that's a
Yeah.
perfect example. Plus the call to action. Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, so like you mentioned, it's personalized, you're giving pricing and you're showing what it includes, right? We're not going
Yep.
super into detail like, hey, from start to finish, this is exactly what we're going to do to your vehicle, but they're kind of throwing in like the main compartments of that package, of those two packages. Again, in a very easy to understand way, very digestible. And more importantly, you're giving them that call to action to do something with that number, right? So, hey, John, here's your quote. Here's everything that's included. What would you like the next steps to be? So that right there, whether the client knew like they're doing that on purpose or not, that is key because you want to drive people to do something after you give them a quote. And it like you guys have probably seen this all day long where you're giving quotes, but then they're not actually scheduling. And that could be fixed simply by having a call to action, by just giving them or pointing them in the right direction after you give them that number.
Yep.
Just adding a call to action to all the quotes that you give will help you increase the amount of responses that you get, without a doubt. Um, the only thing you don't want to do is send out a quote and then kind of hope they do something with it sometime in the future, right? So that's why you want to kind of point them in the direction, plus give them the call to action for like coming in person this week, next week. You're adding a timeline there. So it works out beautifully. Another good point that I want to kind of really expand on is that you're going to have to be more hands on with ceramic coating leads. Um, Especially if you're a mobile detailer who's making the transition from mobile detailing to selling ceramic coatings, what we see a lot is mobile detailers will try to sell coatings as if it's an interior detail. And you do not want to do that because with ceramic coatings, you have a couple things working against you, right? The general public is not super familiar with everything with the entire ceramic coating process, and it's more expensive than a detail. So you have those two things working against you, not even factoring other factors like your pricing, the amount of competitors that you have in your market. So those things can stack up on top of each other, right? So
Yep.
if you're able to take a different approach to selling ceramic coatings, right, either over the phone or in person, ideally, in person, ideally, I think is like the best case scenario because you can talk to them. It's a human level. Like you can walk them through your process. You can show them, what a paint enhancement looks like, what a one step looks like. Um, and it gives you a lot of flexibility to really upsell, downsell, to really see, I guess, in person how the condition of the vehicle is, but also kind of see like how is John, like, is he somebody I can do business with? Does he seem like he's trustworthy? So there's like different layers to the in-person side of things, which I think is why they perform so super well, right?
Yep.
Because you're there in person, it's human, you get that interaction, you're able to build that rapport. Am I missing anything else there with like in-person consultations that you've noticed across our client base, Radu?
Yeah. I think that those would be the main ones. Building rapport with people, that's 70% of the entire thing, I would say. Um,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. Another thing is I really want to double click and expand on the information overload aspect of it because if you've added the ceramic coating page to your website, you know all the details that go into your ceramic coating package. You know the way it's presented on your website. Please do not copy and paste that information and send it via text. That's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. And the reason being is because you're giving somebody way too much information up front, right? Without asking the right questions. So the questions you want to ask are how long are you planning on keeping the vehicle? What's the condition of your paint? What's your vehicle paint color? Have you gotten have you gotten your vehicle coated before? Are you even familiar with ceramic coatings? So getting those questions up front can give you clarity on exactly what package to quote them on, what package is best fit for them, but more importantly, what to really lean on and highlight when you're sending those package details. So if they're really if they really see a lot of value in the protection aspect, right, from sun fade, right, the ease of maintenance aspect, now you know exactly what to really lean on when you're explaining your process or you're explaining what's included in that package. And you're able to break that down in a way that it's personalized, it's helping them, and it's giving them all the information they need to make that informed decision. So instead of just sending like your website link or like this big wall of text that can turn somebody off, ask them those questions first, right? How long are you planning on keeping the vehicle? Um, the your paint condition, your paint color, right? Those kinds of things are super important because you can use that information to give them a personalized quote for the package that would best fit them. And you know what to include in that package that'll be tailored to their needs, right? So if somebody comes to you and they're really leaning on the shine aspect, now you can lean on your paint correction process and everything that goes into it that results in a flawless clear coat. So yeah, I mean those things can make the biggest difference. And I think that's why a lot of people need to learn this is like you're selling a ceramic coating the way you would a detail package when they're two different audiences. They're at way different price points. The 4 or 5 up to 6 times what a detail would cost. So this is why you have to be a little bit more hands-on with the sales process is because it's more expensive and people are less familiar with it. So you have to lean more on the education aspect of like, hey John, here's why a ceramic coating would actually benefit your 2016 GMC Sierra. You know,
Yep.
maybe the clear coat's looking rough by now. Maybe they had a coating before that just isn't holding up. So there's a lot of different factors that you would want to put into consideration when you're giving somebody a quote. Yes.
Yep.
And then lastly, Radu, can you talk on like we talked about information overload, but can you talk about I guess coming off a little bit too pushy in that text? Like because you want to send them the information in a way where it's not going to come off the wrong way, right? You don't want
Yep.
to turn them off. You don't want to say something or become overbearing or too pushy to the point where it's like, dude, I was interested, I can afford it, but you're being really pushy. So can you talk a little bit about um, what that looks like and
Yeah.
how to avoid it?
Yeah. So the most important aspect when it comes to sales, especially, is creating this relationship between you and the client. You want it to be a great deal for them, and obviously, you also need to think about recurring services. If you're gonna build this relationship with him, with that specific client, you might be able to get vehicles from his friends, because if he likes working with you, obviously he might refer you. You might get more jobs. So I would say that's the first thing to keep in mind. Even if you don't end up booking that specific job, being a professional when it comes to this relationship, that builds
Yes.
trust and it builds up your business. And maybe they won't be ready this week or maybe this month, but what if they'll be ready maybe in 2 months or so, and then they'll reach back.
Exactly.
So I would say, as Salvador also said, don't just push the price. Make it just maybe ask them, how's the vehicle? What's the paint condition? How's the paint condition? What specific vehicle do you have? And how long do you want to keep this vehicle? So all of those things come into play. You don't want to be to push too aggressive. You want to keep this balance for every single
Yes.
lead. Yeah.
Yeah, 1000%. I think it's a delicate balance, right? You're selling a high ticket service. You want to come off the right way. You want to be professional. You don't want to come out off overbearing or, desperate for the job, right? I think people can definitely see that, and it's definitely a turn off, right? You want to be more, I mean, you still want to get those questions answered that you need to answer to give them the right quote, but you want to do it in a way where it's not super bearing or, super pushy. Um, but I think this is something that is like a case by case, because some clients, some leads, they're okay with it. Like they need to be followed up with not just once a day, but two, three times a day
Yep.
for a couple days, right? They're busy, right? There's still that level. I think the thing that you want to really measure is the level of interest, right? And I think this becomes obvious over a phone call. It might be a little bit hard to kind of pick up on via text, but if you can get them on the phone or for an in-person consultation, that's when you can really feel out
Yeah.
the intent.
The,
Yeah.
yeah, the entire vibe. Yeah, as long as you get that vibe, you know exactly what that lead wants. Because some leads maybe they'll just want the price up front, and
Yeah.
regardless of how much you tell them about all the information you can give them, they'll just want the price. So obviously, for those leads, it might be best to just give them the price. But even then, you could give them the price that way, as Alex did, that screenshot.
Yes.
Simple
Yes.
message, the price is there, but also in case they want it, they won't need to reach back to you. They can just go to that message, see exactly all the details alongside the price. So it's just,
Yes.
I would say, finding that balance between replying in a fast manner, so in a timely manner, and then also not being too pushy, giving them enough information but not overloading with all the information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1000%. And one thing I'm going to touch on is that leads buying journey. So if you think about it, they're seeing an ad, right? Whether it's on Google, Yelp, Facebook, Instagram, they saw an ad, and now the only thing in their mind is price, right? They just want a number, right? But if you've been in the detailing industry or you've done a couple of ceramic coatings, you know that price isn't what's going to make or break your business,
Yeah.
because there's other things that people don't factor in when they're in that buying journey, like the initial stages, right? They just want price, they want the biggest bang for their buck, but they're also not factoring in the quality of work from the shop that they're getting quotes on, right? So you want to showcase that, which is why, again, it kind of goes back to in-person consultations where you can show them your expertise and what your quality of work looks like, whether it's on a panel or, just a demo. You want to be able to showcase that. Um, you want to ask them those questions like I mentioned earlier to slow them down, to get them outside of that buying, like trying to get that number out of you. But you also want to remind them like there's other really important things about going with the right shop. And hopefully you are that right shop if you're listening to this, right? Where you have a really good reputation, you have excellent quality of work, but maybe you're just missing the sales piece. And this is
Yeah.
where you want to slow them down. You want to ask those questions, right? What's important to you? Price or excellent quality of work, right?
Yeah.
So just simply asking somebody that can really slow them down to get them to think beyond just that number, right? So you want to get them, you want to slow them down to where they can think about quality of work, your reputation, right? If you have over, I would say if you have over 50 5-star Google reviews, I would lean on that. I would begin leaning on that in your sales process because that adds a level of social proof that instead of developing it over a long period of time, just mentioning it can really help you set yourself apart from your competitors, who
Yeah.
might not have that many reviews, who might not be in business for X amount of years. So if you have these things that are, I guess, specific to social proof, you want to highlight that. You definitely want to highlight that because it gives them that level of trust that you just might not be able to kind of develop over a long period of time.
For
So
sure.
yeah, I mean, just to recap here and wrap up, Radu, we've talked about, how not to approach following up with leads, especially ceramic coating leads, because when you begin following up with ceramic coating leads, it's a different ballgame than your detail leads, right? Detail leads, they
Yeah.
know exactly what they want, they know what they can expect to pay roughly, whether wherever you're at in the US, Canada, you know, in your market, there's going to be like a median price that market just knows what to expect to pay with a detail package. But when it comes to ceramic coatings, because everybody's using different products, they're using different techniques, the pricing is going to vary even more with the ceramic coating package. So this is why you really want to slow people down and give them the value first, right? You don't just want to give them the quote and then hope they do something with it at some time, right? That's a lot of unknowns, which is why
Yeah.
you might be getting ghosted. People aren't responding to your text messages, is because you're kind of you're scratching the itch, right? You're scratching that itch of them just wanting that number without factoring in everything else like the quality of work, your reputation, how long you've been in business, whether you have a shop or not. All of those things play a big role into somebody deciding to go with you versus somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And one other thing I want to mention just to wrap things up here is when you tell a lead that, you're actually doing them a huge favor because if you can clearly articulate that you've been in business, you've done hundreds of similar vehicles to theirs, you have a great reputation, you have a great team, your shop looks amazing. Like, this is why our bigger clients have such an easier time selling than our smaller clients or
Yeah.
just in general, right? If somebody has a shop, they have overhead, they have a great reputation, like what they've built over those last years really works in their favor. So this is why getting that social proof, showing them like why you're the clear choice is super important. Is because you want to be able to articulate everything they're going to be paying for um, before they even like schedule with you.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, like headphones, right? This is a product you could touch it, you could feel it, you know what you're paying for. With the ceramic coating package, you don't know exactly what you're paying for until you've already paid for it, right? So this is why educational videos play a big role. Um, I guess educating somebody throughout the entire sales process is super key because if you're not educating somebody throughout the entire process, you're basically relying on them to do their own research, and they're going to do their own research with the information across the entire internet, right? So they're going to read different SEO articles, different blog articles. They're going to watch different YouTube videos. So it's not specific to what you can offer them, right? It's not specific to your packages. It's not specific to you, which is why you want to take control of that information. Um, like the way you share that information, you want to take control of it in a very easy, digestible way. So yeah, I think Rudy, is there anything else that you want to add as far as following up with leads and making sure you're getting the most out of each lead that comes through?
Yeah, I guess that would be it. Make sure you don't send impersonal copy paste texts. Don't send those walls of text, those big walls of text. Instead, make sure that even though you might be needed to send a price sometimes, make sure that you send enough information so you don't lack clarity. And then, yes, I like that one that you said regarding making them slow down so that they think about the quality. I think that's my favorite. And as long as retailers keep that in mind, I think the average number of jobs you're gonna book on a monthly basis is already gonna be a good one. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Because again, that person, a lot like detailing, right? They're just looking for a quote, but they don't really understand what they're paying for, which is why educating somebody is super key. So we'll leave you with that. Let us know what you want us to talk about next week. We're pretty open to any topics. This week we went over follow ups. Next week, just let us know what you want us to talk about, and we could talk about it. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Radu, thank you so